This election, we can and should expect exceedingly racist attacks on Democrats. Racism has been the GOP's go-to campaign strategy since the 60s, when they went all in on flipping white Democrats to their side using a scheme called the Southern Strategy.
There are so many white Democrats who really don't understand how central the Southern Strategy has been to the Republican Party.
Bringing Democrats and disaffected whites into the Republican Party and out of the Democratic Party. It was a shift that had started earlier and then really began to take up steam after the Civil Rights Movement.
You start out in 1954 by saying by 1968 you can't say that hurts you, backfires, so you say stuff like forced busing, states' rights and all that stuff. And the byproduct of them is blacks get hurt worse than white.
The Southern Strategy began in earnest with 1964 presidential candidate and man who fought to decolorize the Wizard of Oz, Barry Goldwater. Goldwater spent his campaign touting his rejection of the 1964 Civil Rights Act because of states' rights. And though Goldwater lost the election due to the undilutable sexual charisma of LBJ, he did manage to win 6 states, 5 of which had been part of the Confederacy, and all states where family trees look more like one big long family stick. Since its inception, the Southern Strategy has been the shitty little playbook of candidates such as Richard Nixon, Ronald Reagan, and George H.W. Bush. If only we could talk to them all today, they'd say, "Ow, help, hell is so hot on my feet." While the notion of they're coming to get you has long been utilized by the GOP, Trump has made it his entire brand. Since white women helped to get him into office, it only makes sense that he'd do his best to appeal to any mom who nervously locks her car doors when Hootie and the Blowfish comes on the radio. I mean, they're fine with the Blowfish. They're very afraid of the Hootie.
I am happy to inform all the people living their suburban lifestyle dream that you will no longer be bothered or financially hurt by having low-income housing built in your neighborhood. Your housing prices will go up based on the market, and crime will go down. I have rescinded the Obama-Biden AFFH rule. Enjoy.
Are you kidding me with this? Even worse, Trump added another tweet saying, "And I am talking about the black people." Telling white suburbanites that minorities will ruin their neighborhoods is only half the strategy, because cities, they are canceled.
Today I'm announcing a surge of federal law enforcement into American communities plagued by violent crime.
All over the world, they're talking about Chicago. Afghanistan is a safe place by comparison.
Welcome to chaos, coast to coast. Sex offenders are now put up in Manhattan hotels on the citizens' dime. No surprise, moving companies are breaking records in New York as people flee. Junkies now pleasure themselves on the once calm streets of the Upper West Side. Sex in the City is now pervs on your lawn.
Strangely, skippers in both. Of course, we already know to expect that Republicans will do whatever it takes to prevent Black and Hispanic people from voting, but it's truly terrifying to see how the pandemic is allowing them to suppress Democratic turnout at warp speed.
Return from recess, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi calling lawmakers back to Washington to address U.S. Postal Service cuts ahead of the November election, including removing mailboxes and sorting machines around the country.
The only way that could be more terrifying is if every one of those mailboxes contained a body. And even then, only because those bodies are still alive. Haunted mailboxes are not the only thing the post office has removed. The USPS has eliminated overtime pay for workers, banned extra trips to deliver as much mail as possible, and removed almost 700 machines used to quickly sort mail. That's right, many distribution centers will now have to rely on by-hand sorting, which will certainly go great when someone has to decipher the address on a postcard written in cursive by your dying left-handed grandmother. Yesterday, amid public outcry, Postmaster General Louis DeJoy announced he's suspending these changes until after the election, but the damage has been done. And who can trust a man who looks like a Dr. Phil after photo? After what? Who knows? While Democrats in Congress are trying to help fund the USPS, Republicans, not so much.
So they want $25 billion for the post office. They want $3.5 billion for universal mailing, $3.5 billion. And the bill's not going to happen, so therefore they don't have the money to do the universal mail-in voting. So therefore they can't do it, I guess, right? They don't have it. They don't have the money to do the universal mail-in votes. It's very simple. How are they going to do it if they don't have the money to do it?
Pretty sure Chuck Schumer's topless car wash fundraiser has that covered. Over the last few months, the White House has claimed that Trump's resistance to mail-in voting is his fear of miscounted ballots and election fraud, even though both Trump and Melania are expected to vote by mail this election. Though to be fair, his ballot won't be counted, because under sex, he always writes, "You got it, toots." Sabotaging the Postal Service and mail-in voting could endanger the election. It's terrifying, especially considering that a majority of Democrats plan to vote by mail, as opposed to only 20% of Republicans. The overall situation is so dire that the Postal Service itself warned that millions of mail-in ballots are at risk of not being counted in 46 different states. Even worse, I don't know if they're ever going to deliver my residual checks from Sesame Street. I want my money, Elmo. I don't accept payment in hugs. The Republican Party has spent decades mastering ways to cheat their way into office, which is why we have to be so outspoken about it during the election. We should allow ourselves to feel hope for the future, and then we should get right back to work, because when you are dealing with a pack of decomposing racists, you have to expect the worst. If you liked this video, hit subscribe and let me know in the comments below. And if you didn't like this video, I'm sure you've already left a comment. Thank you so much.